hitting on a free waiver wire pickup before week 1 can be the difference between you finishing last and first in your fantasy league. All these names, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, James Robinson, James Conner, David Johnson, Marquez Colson, Alvin Kamara, Devonta Freeman, and Alfred Morris, these were all waiver wire pickups at one point, and they helped people win championships. Well, in today's video, we're giving you over 30 names, and I'm gonna rank all of my favorite waiver wire stashes before week 1 at every position. You can check out the time codes, and at the end, I'm giving you my favorite kicker and defensive streamer for week 1. Let's dive straight into it. Now, if you're in a very small league, this portion of the video is for you. I'm not gonna talk about the names that are on your screen right now. They are the most obvious holds, stashes before week 1. I'm not going to tell you about Bill Krosky-Merritt. Everybody knows about Bill Krosky-Merritt. I'm not going to tell you about Drake May. All right. These are names that should already be rostered in every single format. Now, just quickly, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson should both be rostered. I prefer Dylan Sampson. They just cut Pierre Strong. Those guys with the Judkins situations are primed for early work. Brian Robinson, coach came out and said he is the clear RB2. You can cut Isaac Correndo. You can pick up Brian Robinson if he's available. Cedric Tillman, last name here, with the Browns releasing Deontay Johnson. Cedric Tillman with Joe Flacco, it would not shock me in the first 6 weeks if he ends up being like a top 30 wide receiver. So he's definitely worth stashing. Okay, let's start off with the running back position. And again, we're going to reveal my rankings as we go so you'll know exactly how I rank these names. Starting off with Bashul Tootin. Now, he's going to be drafted in most of your leagues, but that's why we're going from, my top to the bottom. So no matter how big or small your league is, you're going to know how I prefer these stashes. But Tootin, look, the rumors are already swirling in Jacksonville. All right, the Jags are looking to trade one of Travis Etienne or Tank Bigsby. Now, why would that be? Let's think about that for a second. Probably because they want to see Bashul Tootin in a serious role. I really liked Bashul Tootin as a prospect. You can see my write-up in our 2025 rookie report. Early round 4 selection for the Jags, ranked 3rd on our limits to lemonade team. My ceiling, again, ceiling pro comp for him, not the medium outcome, but my ceiling comp for him was a James Cook level player. This time last year, if you watched a video from us and we told you, go pick up Bucky Irving, you would have commented and said, well, that's stupid. Rachaad White was the RB4 the year before. The reality is Liam Cohen is going to give his best players an opportunity to shine, so definitely have Tootin on your rosters. Tied with Tootin for first there is Braylon Allen. He should have been drafted in every league, but in your small leagues, if he's still available, this team has been very clear that they want to use Braylon Allen. Earlier in the offseason, Aaron Glenn, head coach, said they're going to use 3 running backs. They want to kind of replicate what they did in Detroit. Then Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic called Braylon Allen one of the stars of camp. Albert Breer goes on and says he's going to have a very significant role. And then in the preseason action, he is heavily involved. If Breece Hall is traded mid-season and you forgot to stash Braylon Allen and someone dropped him, you're going to regret that big time. All right, how about Ollie Gordon? Ollie Gordon is our 3rd player. We talked about this in a previous video this week, but in case you missed it, Jalen Wright has been terrible. He's been injured. Ollie Gordon's been incredibly efficient with every single touch that he's given. There's no Raheem Mostert. There's no Jeff Wilson. Ollie Gordon was a special player at Oklahoma State, 1,700 yards on 6 yards per carry in 2023. He should be rostered in every league. And there's a chance, don't forget, we're just a year removed from there being a two-head backfield in Miami. I think they might miss a goal line presence. Raheem Mostert had, 20 touchdowns or something crazy with the Dolphins? So Ollie Gordon should be rostered. All right, the 4th running back that I love here, Jaden Blue. Now, some people might have dropped him or didn't draft him in your drafts because of that ankle injury, but he's already back at practice. He showed some great flashes in the preseason action, and his competition is Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, and a bunch of no names. So he should be rostered in what should be a good offense. He's a great pass catcher, probably the best pass catcher in that offense already. At 5, we're going to talk about DJ Giddens. Now, if you don't know, DJ Giddens is automatically the RB2 in the Colts right now. They just released Khalil Herbert. So if anything were to happen to Jonathan Taylor, we're going to be talking about a name like DJ Giddens as a must start each and every week. That happened last year. Last year, Jonathan Taylor missed time with an injury. The year before that, we had Zach Moss, who was a must start for the Colts every single week. Don't be sleeping on some DJ Giddens. All right, at number 6, we got the combo of the Houston Texans backfield. I think this could be messy. I don't know how much value is in this backfield. This offensive line is not very good. Okay. Now, I don't think Nick Chubb is going to be very successful behind that offensive line. I think he'll get the early work, but then they're going to try Dameon Pierce a little bit. And then ultimately, now that Joe Mixon is on the IR, by the way, he'll miss the first 4 weeks. Ultimately, my opinion is that Marks is the running back that could be the quote-unquote league winner in this backfield. Remember, they traded a third-round pick next year to go get him in this year's draft. He can make an impact out of the backfield from day one. He was Mississippi State's record holder in receptions amongst any players, not just running backs, receiving yards by a running back, and consecutive games with a catch with 45. 45 games with a catch in college football is crazy, like in a row. His career stats as a receiver are crazy. 257 receptions, over 1,500 yards. The kid ran a receiving route on almost 85% of his snaps in 2024 at USC. And in the past, this team has showed us that they like to use the satellite back more than the bruiser in their offense. Their offensive identity is more built around that satellite back. Like last year, Dare Ogunbowale got more work than Dameon Pierce. Now, why would that be? Again, think about it, because this offensive line is terrible. This offensive line is atrocious, and they're going to have to emulate the run game through the air by targeting these running backs out of the backfield. I want Woody Marks. All right, at 7, the Bears running backs. I prefer Kyle Monangai. Totally, Rashawn Johnson could have a role as well, but I think Kyle Monangai and Rashawn Johnson are two fantastic stashes if they're the best available on this list for you. DeAndre Swift struggled a lot last year. He was very inefficient. He was not good at all. And Ben Johnson has deployed multiple running backs throughout his time as a play caller. And if he sees fit for one of these guys to get work, he's going to give them work. He's had 2 running backs finish top 24 in fantasy in each of the last 3 years in Detroit. So these guys are must rosters. All right, at 8, Will Shipley. This is very simple. If Saquon Barkley goes down, who's RB2? It is Will Shipley, ladies and gentlemen, and he will be behind the best offensive line in one of the best offenses in the NFL. That is like a free ticket if something terrible were to happen to Saquon Barkley. At 9, Chris Rodriguez. Now, the Commanders have vocally said that they plan on using him alongside JCM, alongside Eckler, and he was pretty good in limited action last year. Last year, Jared Smola on over there with Injury Shark, I believe, he mentioned that out of 91 running backs with 30 carries last year, Rodriguez was 5th in yards after contact per attempt, 2nd in PFF elusive rating, and 7th in PFF run grade. So if they want to use him, if that's actually true, I would be a fool not to tell you to stash him, especially in this elite offense. If that's not true, drop him. You wasted nothing. You're stashing these guys for free and hoping we find a lottery ticket. Most of these names are not going to be relevant, but it's all about doing your due diligence before the season begins, okay? All right, so after Chris Rodriguez, we have Taj Brooks. Same thing with Will Shipley. Taj is the clear guy behind, Chase Brown there. He would be a must-start weekly if Chase Brown went down. At 11, we've got the running backs there in LA. That's a great offense to be a part of. Blake Corum's a clear favorite right now. At 12, we have Kendre Miller, a very talented player, but was previously on the hit list for the previous staff, right? The previous staff hated Kendre Miller. Now, this new staff has made it clear he's their RB2. Check out what Kellen Moore had to say about it.
Kendre has just had a really steady entire offseason. I thought he's done a phenomenal job. Training camps, just been consistent week in and week out. These games, I thought he runs really, really hard. He's a physical player. We like what we've seen.
And then recently, they actually cut Clyde Edwards-Helaire from this team, so it's wheels up for Kendre Miller as the RB2, but he's lower than these other guys because the Saints offense isn't going to be that great. At 13, Keaton Mitchell. Why? Because Keaton Mitchell could take the Justice Hill role in Baltimore. In fact, he could be the most explosive running back in Baltimore from like a per touch basis. So definitely be rostering Keaton Mitchell. And at 14, if you're in a very, very deep league, Brashard Smith. The Chiefs did waive Carson Steele. Okay, so we've got a potential Jet McKinnon situation with Brashard Smith, who played a lot of receiver in college before he moved to the running back position. So they're using him all over the field in Kansas City. They're using him in the slot, out wide, in the backfield. This could be their new Jet McKinnon, who at one point, if you remember, was a top 20 running back with the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, we're going to go into wide receivers here, but the 2025 season pass is a must-have for your fantasy football season. Guys, it's a one-time purchase, $34 when you use my promo code LAND. You can check out the pinned comment. That's about $1.90 per week for you to have unlimited access to the Flock site, my weekly rankings, rest of season rankings for the entirety of the season. You get access to some vouchers where I'll help you on a live stream, and you get access to all the draft guides on the Flock site. Do not miss out on the season pass. It is the best deal in the industry. All right, let's jump into my wide receiver stash rankings. I'm going to reveal the list as we go. Like I said, first, Christian Kirk. Look, Christian Kirk is like the non-sexy name that a lot of people might be forgetting in drafts. If he's available, you might be able to flex him in week 1. If you include Tank Dell's targets from last year in Houston, he had 84, then the Texans would be top 3 in vacated targets to the wide receiver room. Kirk will be the starting slot. He's going to be like a gross, like, discount Keenan Allen what you had last year, right? Okay, at number 2, my favorite pickup of any player we're going to talk about today as a stash heading into week 1, Alec Manor. Again, my favorite stash. He has shown plenty of potential to begin his young Titans career. If you look at preseason action from weeks 2 to 3, granted, no Tony Pollard, no Calvin Ridley, but with the first team action, Alec Manor played about 97% of the snaps, ran about 93% of the routes, and had almost a 55% target share with Cam Ward on the field. All this is with Cam Ward on the field, right? All this, again, when you look at this wide receiver room, there was Van Jefferson there was Tyler Lockett there, they cut Xavier Restrepo. So he is primed to get some work early on, and if Cam Ward is good, if he is that guy, then you got a chance to get a free Alec Manor before Cam Ward even breaks out. That is the potential of a video like this. The potential that Cam Ward is so great and Alec Manor is more involved than anyone's anticipating that he could end up being some huge steal for your fantasy football roster. A free square. All right, let's move on from Alec Manor. Let's talk about the Broncos wide receiver room, okay? Because things have changed in Denver. They traded away Devon Bailey, no longer on the team. And in their last preseason game, that shifted the wide receiver room a little bit. You saw with the first team, Marvin Mims played 100% of the snaps, ran 100% of the routes, but a 0% target share. That was the opposite last year, where he wasn't in much, but when he was in, he was targeted. So I don't know what to take from that just yet, but Troy Franklin also in there for 57% of the snaps, ran 66% of the routes run, and had a 14% target share. I think Marvin Mims is the one to stash right now, and Franklin could be a top waiver wire pickup at some point this year. Per Jordan Schultz, the staff has loved Troy Franklin this offseason. He looks poised for a bigger role. His understanding of the position, toughness, he should be a key target for Bo Nix is what Jordan Schultz is saying. So definitely worth rostering. As one name leaves, opportunity opens up in Denver. At 4, let's talk about Deontay Thornton Jr. Okay, so Thornton Jr. is a very big hype name. You may have heard of him already. There were reports that the Raiders wanted to trade Jacoby Myers. Then reports the next day said they're not looking to trade Jacoby Myers. If Jacoby were to be moved, which is unlikely at this point, then Thornton would be the number 1 waiver wire pickup, and he would be taking over Twitter pretty much instantly. Like, if a trade happens by the time you're watching this video, you probably already know this name. But when you look at the depth chart, all right, Tucker is a deep threat. Amari Cooper, in my opinion, is washed. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken 1 week until the NFL season for someone to sign him. And you look at Thornton, he is the big outside X profile, and we've seen Geno Smith with a big outside X, so I do think Thornton should be rostered, and it's a good quarterback there with Geno Smith throwing him the ball. At 5, Jalen Coker, another trade that is swirling. By the time you're watching this, maybe the trade is done, maybe it doesn't happen, but either way, Jalen Coker is worth stashing. There's a potential trade for Adam Thielen to be moved to Minnesota, and that would directly help Jalen Coker. He would probably be their starting slot wide receiver. And we have seen Bryce Young target wide receivers out of the slot heavily at this young point of his career. Last year to end the season, Coker became an important part of their offense. From week 15 onwards, he averaged 88% of the snaps. That's on the right side of your screen. 5 targets per game and an 18% target share. If he takes another step and Thielen is gone, he could be a weekly flex for your fantasy football team for free. All right, moving on. Demario Douglas and Kyle Williams both could emerge as top weapons there in New England. At 7, Torrey Horton, who, by the way, hype name coming out of camp, and they just released Marquez Valdez-Scantling, meaning the only wide receivers ahead of Torrey Horton on the depth chart now are JSN, he's not going to overtake him, and Cooper Kupp. If Torrey Horton can develop, and he's got that outside X wide receiver body, if he can develop and play in 2 wide receiver sets at some point, you're going to want to have him rostered. All right, at number 8, Malik Washington. Malik Washington was an absolute freak at the University of Virginia. Set records for the ACC, set records for Virginia. He was incredible. And if this team implodes and Tyreek is traded away, Malik Washington becomes a startable name each and every single week. At number 9, Isaac Tesla. You've probably heard a lot of hype about him. He's lower on my list just simply because I struggle to see him being a relevant fantasy receiver. He'll be great for this team. He'll be a big upgrade over what they had at wide receiver 3 last year. But with all those mouths to feed, I don't see him being an important fantasy name. I could be wrong. At number 10, Keandre Lambert-Smith, the hype name out of the Chargers camp this offseason. I know Trey Harris is there. Trey Harris is probably drafted in all your leagues, but they love Keandre Lambert-Smith, and he's been fantastic. So in deeper leagues, he's a great stash. These are all deeper stashes from here on out, right? At 11, Jalen Royals. If a Rashee Rice, suspension is longer than anticipated, he will be a relevant name. At number 12, Jalen Lane. Multiple beat reporters out of Washington claiming he will be the starting slot wide receiver for the Commanders. He should be rostered. At number 13, Demarcus Robinson. Think about it for a second. This team, who just cut Robbie Chosen, who was starting for them, by the way, in the preseason, who's going to play wide receiver for this team? I know Demarcus Robinson is dealing with a, suspension, but after that first couple weeks of the season, you should have your eye on him because he might be a startable name. If Juwan Jennings' calf injury is real, if that's a real thing, then Demarcus Robinson might be the wide receiver 2 on this team at some point. So keep that in mind. At number 14, Joshua Palmer, who could, according to reports this offseason, be a startable wide receiver on the outside for the Buffalo Bills. So that's my stash list for the wide receivers. Now, I got to ask you, is this helpful where I do the rankings? I'm asking that because sometimes I release a video like this and people are in really small leagues and none of these names, typically matter. Other times you guys are in really deep leagues and names like, for example, Christian Kirk was drafted already and Alec Omander has been drafted and all the Denver Broncos are rostered. So I want to know if this type of format is more helpful than a traditional top 10 just go through the players. Let's go to the tight ends here. I think Brenton Strange should be drafted. I drafted him in the Flock League. I feel like he's just a free what if at this point, right? Brenton Strange, he was a fringe starter the last 2 seasons for the Jags without Evan Ingram. And one of those years he was a rookie. So that was pretty rare to see. Now both Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk are gone from this offense. They contributed heavily to that offense in previous years. Number 2, Isaiah Likely. Now, the foot injury kind of helped out Mark Andrews, and it really hurt the Isaiah Likely train. But Likely should be back early in the season. And maybe this is someone you don't roster straight away, but you monitor it in weeks 2 and 3. Because I do believe we could see a changing of the guard from Mark Andrews to Isaiah Likely earlier than anticipated. At number 3 and 4, 2 rookie tight ends that I really love, Mason Taylor and Elijah Arroyo. For Mason Taylor, he should be the starter day 1 for the Jets. For Elijah Arroyo, AJ Barner is there, but he's probably going to fill more of the blocking role. Arroyo could be an important outside receiver for them. At number 5, Zach Ertz. Why is Zach Ertz not getting any love? He was a tight end 8 from week 6 onwards last year. Then the team re-signed him. He's the starting tight end in an elite offense. If you don't go tight end early and you don't have an answer yet, just pick up Zach Ertz and start him week 1. At number 6, Chigakonkwo, same idea, earlier with Alec Omander. They need to target someone. And if Cam Ward is good, Chig could be a great name. And at number 7, Darren Waller. I don't expect Darren Waller to be important. He's probably the least important name in this entire video, but I just wanted to mention he is the starting tight end for the Miami Dolphins. All right, let's go do some streams. I'm going to give you my streaming kicker of week 1. All right, we're locking it in. This is the name we are streaming in week 1 for kickers. That is Matt Gay with the Washington Commanders versus the New York Giants. Simply put, any kicker for the Commanders last year was a must start because of how good that offense was. There were so many kicking opportunities. Now he gets to play the New York Giants. The Washington Commanders should win that game, and Matt Gay should have a great week. At the defensive spot, we're going to go ahead and say the Cardinals at New Orleans. That is our favorite stream of week 1. The Saints are an absolute mess. Spencer Rattler is the starting quarterback. I think Alvin Kamara is the only safe name in week 1 with the worst quarterback room there in New Orleans. Now, if you're watching this video, I imagine you're hyped for week 1. I am too. I can't believe football is back. I actually just set a lineup for FastDraft's Quick 6 Super Slam contest. The contest just launched. It's very simple. All you have to do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks. So you can see in this contest, I chose 4 running backs, 2 wide receivers. We're rocking with McCaffrey at Seattle, Bijan versus Tampa Bay, and a couple of these other matchups that you can see we're trying to chase. All you have to do is choose players. That's it. 6. Set your boosters accordingly because you can see at the top, I'm giving Christian McCaffrey 2 times the points this week, and then you can win some money this week after week 1 contest finishes. So Whatever lineup scores the most points wins the most money. But you got to keep in mind, you got to create some unique lineups, because if you submit the same lineup as me, we're probably all going to not make very much money. You want to get as unique as you possibly can in this contest. So download the FastDraft app, use a promo code LAND. I'm going to match your deposit up to $50. And then you're going to get 5 free entries on me. And then you're also going to get my week 1 rankings. So I appreciate y'all for watching the video. Hit the like button if you found any value in it. Subscribe if you the same thing there. And I'll see you guys in the very next video. Nothing but love. Draft with me every night this offseason on the FastDraft app, where there are over $250,000 in prizes waiting to be won. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. And when you finish your first real money contest, I'll send you my 2025 rookie report and season rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.